You're live.
Boom. Welcome to the Dream Show Live, February the 5th, 2025, live in living color.
Bro, I know it became a meme, but January felt like we've already lived the whole year.
Did it?
Did it feel that way to you, or
No,
did
it
it
was
feel
super
fast?
fast. It was very fast for me.
Man,
Just disappeared.
I felt like January was never going to end.
You traveled a lot.
That too.
You were all over the place.
That's
so
true.
that's part of that thing, and that's kind of what I'm pulling out right here. Are you traveling this weekend as well?
I am. We're headed to Vegas for the PGF qualifier. Magnificent segue, sir. I'm getting proud
Yeah.
of you.
I'm working. But
What
this is the
up,
final
Wallow?
one. Yeah, is Wallow in this place?
Wallow's in
Look,
the chat.
I may or may not read the comments, y'all. I know we're not cool as the insiders show over here, but if we ever get some of those comments that we was getting, I'm a while out.
Yo, well, like also we sometimes I've been doing this show with you now for when did we start doing the Dream Show live? What was that, like 2 years ago? Wait,
21 probably.
was it 21? Yeah, it would have been 21.
20 or
So 3 years.
yeah.
3 years ago. And there's times that Steven gets on a roll that, like, you're saying some good stuff, but if I interrupt you, it's gonna completely like derail the track. And so sometimes I don't read the comments, or the comments don't get read in a timely manner because I'm trying to let my man cook.
Yeah, and that's the ADHD, and you can't stop it. And then sometimes I have to just realize, whoa, I think I was talking for a long time. I hope that made sense. So I just got to take where the inspiration follows. And so, yeah, I know we've missed people's comments and different things and times, but it's nothing intentional. But yeah, final PGF qualifier is this weekend.
Yep.
So far,
final
34,
one for season 8.
Season 8, correct. 34 registered.
Oh my gosh. 34 people.
Familiar names.
I was sitting here pulling up the list right now because I hadn't even looked at a list of names. I know there's a couple repeats, right?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. We're trying to look for more familiar names that have been in there before. I see Sam Davis is there. CJ Murdoch. I don't know if he came to a qualifier previously yet or not, but I do remember that name. Brady Hilton, Nick Soff. Nick's not one to just accept his alternate pass. He's trying
we
to.
saw the
he's
other
trying
day
to earn his way in.
he has an open invitation as a alternate, right?
Right. Yeah, he's got an alternate spot locked up if he wants that, but he's
if he wants it.
Man, I'd rather go ahead and secure my spot as a main player, that's respectable because I might slide in as an alternate, dog, and just get my money on the back end once these guys are beat up. You know what I'm saying? I don't have to take everybody on fresh.
Well, I just got to one of the points in editing the documentary. If anybody remembers, being an alternate on the PGF, I think sometimes has a similar effect to it because, all right, you and I've both talked about this and seen this, but like there's the PGF effect when guys come on and they're on the show, is that like you'll have people that are kind of like on the peripheral of the like grappling scene. They're starting to break out. They're starting to like do stuff. You maybe have seen them once or twice, but then when you see them on the PGF, for one, you see them in a whole year's worth of amount of grappling for some people. In 1 week or more. Yeah. And then on top of that, you get to know them on a level, especially us, like working on the show, but like on the show itself, like you get to know these guys so well because you see them so often that their personality can't help but bleed through. So, you remember when we were talking at the opening of the show of like remembering if something made sense? Did that make sense? As like where I'm headed is that like that PGF like effect that people have, or that the PGF has when people come on it, it happens every time.
Yeah, and it's interesting, and that's kind of what we're trying to do too, is build stories around these athletes and grapplers and the people involved, which is what really people are mostly interested in long term, is the storytelling and stuff like that. You can find dudes grappling anywhere, all over the place or whatever, in various rule sets and different things like that too. But if you have an interesting character going, that's usually where people's attention are trying to like follow. And a lot of times that's been like people trying to chase like who's number one, who's the best, all those different things, gold medals and so so forth, which is fine too. But now we're trying to get it, I think, to that point to where it's the long term game of the storytelling. And it's like, hey man, your favorite player may end up on a bad team for a few seasons and then get on a good team, or whatever. Or this player you hated is now on your favorite team, and so you like, oh shoot, he's really cool, and now I really like this player, because you get to know him because he's part of the team that you enjoy and stuff like that. So there's a lot of avenues of this that are starting to, I think, be able to develop, which are unique to the PGF that may not be there for other grappling avenues and things like that as much yet. I know there's other people, everybody's working on their own version of the thing that they think is going to make it work the best, which is great. That's the competition thing that drives us all like forward evolutionary
Yeah.
wise. So that's good too. I just think that the long term storytelling, like you said, condensing everything down, making them, you get to see you do, you know, 12 matches, 15 matches, especially if you start making it to the playoffs and things like that in a single week.
But you're
Um,
guaranteed 12. Like I said, some people don't grapple 12 times in a year at the top
yeah,
level.
no, that's what's, yeah, for sure. And so it's like, is that, and then if you're a younger guy that's looking to gain experience, this is one of the best ways to do it. And if you're somebody who thinks that your game is pretty good and you're able to go out here and really put people away and put points on the board, then this is a way to really make a name for yourself and let people get to know you more than just as that guy who goes out there and grapples too, because they're being in the one place for the week also gives you time to discuss multiple kind of things that are going on versus that when you're only in a 1 day or 2 day whatever kind of event situation, you're not really going to get the true feelings
It's
of the
just
player out always. Sometimes,
surviving sometimes.
yeah, and
Yeah.
it's the
Yeah.
stock response and it's the just the regular everyday response. But then now, like you said, we get to know each other and they get to realize we're in this with you. We're not, none of us are ever trying to make you look bad
Yeah.
intentionally. Everything that we're doing, at least on my end for sure, is really just trying to enhance the guys to make them look, feel, and compete better and have a effect on it that way is where I'm at with it.
Yeah. Me personally, as far as like from the being one of the ones that's like hanging onto the lens and like framing things for people, is that like I won't ever use footage to lie. Is kind of the approach that I take in my head when I'm making things. I realized early when I started doing like filmmaking and like making like content that was supposed to be utilized as opposed to just like your own personal, like we all kind of to some extent do it now because we all have a camera in our pocket, but like when it became something that was going to shape how somebody thinks about somebody, I kind of realized the power that it has and the way that I treat like content and creating and making like film and that type of stuff. The way I treat it is that it's a mirror. And then that's how I interact with it as somebody who it like points at me. And then that's also how I try to form it and do that, is that like I can direct the mirror. And so it doesn't mean that like I'm holding up the mirror every single time that I see something, because sometimes people aren't ready to see that reflection, or sometimes that's not the reflection that they're actually trying to portray, you know. So it did that make like that's kind of the idea that I try to like keep that thing. But then I got the two little guys on my shoulders talking to me sometimes because there's a producer over here
Well,
that goes, go film it. Don't turn the camera off. But then the nice guy is always hanging out during the edit.
I think I think there's a line that
Yeah.
I think that exists, and I think historically it's probably been decently covered. It seems like, to where nothing that was a lot of time, and not saying, like really heinous, like criminal things or anything like that, but just like people seem to like have been protected until it was safe for them, to expose certain feelings or things like that that were caught on camera and things like that when they were younger, and maybe they got, they were really like stressed out and ran down or whatever, and so they just said something to the camera one day that was like negative about their career, just like whatever, and it would have really like hurt their stock overall or whatever, you know what I mean? Any kind of thing like that happens so much. And like I've realized that with you for sure. There's been days that like we were just together for a lot of the day, and some of the times it was recording and sometimes it was not necessarily recording, but it was just us like interacting a lot of times. And so there could be anything being said, just kind of talking amongst friends. And then if that was put out in a clip that didn't have any real context to what else was going on or whatever, it could really drastically
I
affect
mean, that for
somebody.
sure happens in the modern day.
No,
Like,
yeah,
there's
that's
people
it's like it seems like
all the
before the
time. Yeah, there all the time. There's people that are like, a good example is like in the comedy world. Like, you get comedians that are working on a bit that they're trying to like be funny, and they're trying to make drunk people laugh at 2 a.m. and they say some stuff, and then it goes on the internet. It's like, yo, if you had heard that whole set,
yeah,
context could have mattered. But then there's also people that, dude, look, as somebody that's holding the camera, sometimes it blows me away sometimes what people are willing to like whip around and just say to a camera, and you're like, this is on, right? like like but at the same time, I also firmly believe that like if you don't draw that line that I was talking about earlier of like how you're going to treat this kind of thing, well, then that's where you can get into a position where you're kind of abusing those situations, and you're kind of, taking advantage of the fact that people, because you can edit anything, you can make reality whatever you want when you're editing. And so, especially these days, like if you're on the internet, don't believe anything you see on the internet. Don't believe anything anybody shows you in a video format.
believe me, you can believe me.
Can you?
You can trust me.
Is this your final pitch for your following? You
The
just
cult
cut to some Sarah McLachlan, and then
started now.
you just go in like,
No, please not yet.
no,
We're not ready yet.
okay,
They're not ready for that yet.
We weren't ready for that.
I wasn't ready for that level of cult initiation today. But no, that's what I'm saying. Is like that's
my
the
robes
thing.
are
Is
at the
like,
dry cleaner.
we talk about stuff like that, but dude, you're a little bit glared out right here. Somehow the sun keeps getting in front of you or something, or maybe my camera sucks.
It's that Caribbean sun, man.
My
It
intranet.
gets.
I forgot my strain of thought there.
Okay, well, so did I, because I
See, that's that thing we were
adjusting
talking about in the
things.
beginning, right there, where you just gotta just keep talking and not stop talking about the thing.
We were
But yeah,
talking about
we're talking about the
way that
recording
you
of things.
interact.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like
Recording.
I'm marketing. Oh yeah. Different things like that. There's definitely things like for me personally, that I don't do well with certain like marketing strategies because I feel that it's dishonest in ways that it's just maybe because it's not 100% accurate or whatever it is. And that's just, that's a me thing that I've had to learn to kind of deal with in certain things because it is what it is,
The
and there's ways.
salesy, when people say like, I don't like to be salesy.
Yeah, things like that even, but like I don't mind, like that's the thing. I don't mind selling you something
Yeah.
if I can tell you directly you about to buy this and it's for you, but I don't want to tell
Yeah.
you that it's going to change your life definitely because it might not.
Yeah.
It might just not do that for you or whatever it is might, I don't know. So that's just like
Yeah.
the way that things are done sometimes. And so just having to get into that a lot differently than what I maybe understood it to be. And so there's things like that. It's like I'm not going to intentionally lie to you, but I might be wrong. And that's going to be the way it is. Like I ain't going to tell you something wrong on purpose, but I have been wrong at least one time before in my life.
Yeah. We should have a sales guy on the show. Like somebody who's like a sales If
Explain.
anybody, yeah, like that's if that would be not if, but like that would be a really good conversation. Is like okay, because I've been in sales jobs, I've watched the sales
There's lots of
stuff
different
of
kinds of
like,
sales too, right? So that's things like what are we trying to talk about in that way? But
but I mean, what I guess what I'm talking about is like, did you ever see the movie Glengarry Glen Ross?
I don't think so.
It's a
How old is that?
classic.
Okay.
You're hurting me like the same way that Keelan hurts me because he doesn't know movies either. I was like, how are you a film guy and not a film guy?
I think that's how it goes.
But anyways, he has a big speech where he's talking about like being a closer, and coffee is for closers for the
Oh,
reference for
that's
the
where that.
people.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where that comes from. Is that like it's a big long monologue where he's going in on them and telling them like a guy goes to get some coffee and he's like, that's coffee's for closers, put the coffee down, and then goes through a whole spiel about like you can educate yourself and you can figure it out, and the sales model. The problem with that whole thing is that like when you're selling something for me, if I'm selling it, it's got to be something that I believe in. I can't just sell you this cup because it's the greatest cup that ever. I've never been that kind of salesman. But if like I was invested, like when I was younger, I sold kayaks for a while, and I grew up a kayaker. Loved that. Loved selling those because I could sell it to you. To be honest, jujitsu is not that hard for me to sell. When I was running the gym, like it really wasn't that hard for me to sell it. It's like, yeah, it's the greatest thing ever. My whole life.
I
Like
mean, it
this
sort
is
of speaks for itself that way.
right.
But then now that's the thing. Now we're in a different place where there's it's not just that. There's a lot of different marketing and stuff that goes on in the martial arts community, specifically, not even saying jiu-jitsu even,
Just
but
martial
definitely
arts.
martial
Yeah.
arts historically has had a lot of, you know,
Well,
deceptive perhaps business
okay.
practices, or we talk about McDojo stuff or whatever that is like that. People are looking at only making money
Yeah.
from the thing rather than necessarily treating it, for better or worse financially as, a martial arts.
Do you want my hot take on that at 10:39 a.m. right here?
Absolutely.
Brazilian jiu-jitsu as we know it today now is nothing more than a marketing campaign that went really really well in the 70s.
Mm,
I'm
I
not saying that in a negative
no,
connotation.
no,
Maybe my
I
tone
think
made
that's
it that way.
probably mostly right, and I think that's I don't think that's negative even
No.
to say it. I think that's what the UFC was
Yeah, the UFC was a marketing campaign for Brazilian jiu-jitsu
to
that
be
was an
used.
art that was being practiced by Brazilians, that was a variation of a Japanese art that everybody had learned down there and applied it to their needs for both the no holds bar fights in the streets. And it was effective, as we all know, it kind of works. And they came in the 70s, they saw how well karate he was doing, and were like, copy paste.
I think that's the way of the
I'm not saying
world.
it's a bad thing. It's
No,
just
that's the way everything is, right? That's why you have Coke and Pepsi. That's like they're like, oh, I'm
that
gonna make
works.
some money like that. Let me
I'm gonna
make
make
the
money
closest
like
thing
he's
I
making
can.
money.
Yeah, y'all sell
Yeah.
fried chicken. I know how to fry chicken. We got different spices in ours. It's gonna be, the breading's different or whatever, and we're gonna have our fries be a little different. But let's sit up right across the street.
Yeah. But then humans get weird. And this is my I guess that original thing isn't really a hot take. But this is where like it gets weird is that when you add ideology in that, it gets weird. And I think that that's where it feels like you're merging salesy, that weird salesy feeling, and then ideologies. And then we end up in this weird place where people are making decisions and doing things solely based off how they feel, solely based off of how somebody else makes them feel, and not made off of wanting to gain what it's presented as like bettering your life and all that, because that's what it is. That's what it can do.
You could
But
also get beat up and hurt and have
yeah,
disc issues and, tear your rotator cuff in the first class you ever take or whatever it is too, if you're in the wrong spot. So yes, it is all those things, but it could also be the thing that throws you
it can
a roadblock
ruin your
on
life.
other plans that you have. Definitely, man. I've had guys that train with me that are regular people that have regular everyday lives or whatever, and then they've been training and doing well, but like a meniscus tear, and you're a mechanic or something like that.
It's problematic.
It's very problematic. It's very so then like of course I just want them to be healthy. Like there's the arguments like, oh, they want you to be healthy so that way you could keep paying your bills. Is what people say. It's like, well, I mean, paying to the gym, right, to keep paying your
Yeah,
dues or
yeah,
whatever.
yeah,
And
yeah,
it's like, of course that, like to a degree, you want everybody to be, but also, I want you to be healthy so you could live your life outside of
yeah.
this
Because
and
I'm a good
enjoy it.
person and I
And
actually want you to enjoy your life.
if you lose your job, I won't get paid from you probably, but then also neither will your power bill or your, other
Yeah,
very
yeah,
important things that your
yeah,
family relies on for you. So like there's a lot of things like that that come into it, and I think there's levels of jujitsu where, or what we call jujitsu or whatever, that it's not for everybody. Everybody's like, oh, it's for everybody. It's like, well, but this kind is not for everybody. This style of it is not for everybody. Not saying style, saying 10th Planet or any Gracie Baja or any like lineage or whatever you want to call them, associations or whatever, but just like this specific spot is probably not for you. There's
yeah,
probably a spot for you. I don't know if it's in your city though.
yeah,
And I'm learning that now dealing with people who are much older or whatever that is, or have, certain conditions or abilities or disabilities. They can't interact with the thing in that environment that we came up in, or at least I came up in. And that's
Oh,
why
for
everybody
sure.
got
Yeah,
chewed up and spit out a lot of times too.
yeah,
Um, so there's such a balance between this thing, because it's got to, what makes it work is that it's tested and you're able to test it yourself often, as often as you want realistically. And and that, and that's why it's refined, and that's why it's been working to the degree that it's worked, is because the liveness of it. And that's where the other stuff got taken away from karate or whatever. That's
yeah.
why it got beaten up once this happened, because they had kind of shielded everybody from a lot of
Reality.
what was going to really happen.
Yeah.
So like that's the struggle, right? And so how much of this thing is related to fighting and like defending yourself as a person, and how much of this thing now is a hyper athletic
Yoga.
competition that you're really relying as much on athleticism as you are on your intelligence now,
Yeah. Yeah.
to be able to
Yeah.
accomplish your goals and stuff. So it's very interesting, and that I don't know that they're not the same thing anymore. It's not
Yeah. Well, I don't think they ever were. I
it's not
think that we combined
or whatever.
competition.
Grappling. It's not jujitsu. We use jujitsu in grappling, but it's not jujitsu anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. Like it's grappling. It's
Grappling.
the sport of grappling is what it is. Is that because
Yes, we're influenced. My style is heavily influenced by jujitsu,
yeah.
but I still just do grappling.
Yeah.
I'm not really doing jujitsu purely, or whatever that means. Brazilian jiu-jitsu.
Well, there's a part because all right, I've recently had
And
this
I don't mean that
experience.
negatively either. Like it's just
No,
that
no.
it's,
Well, I recently had this experience because like I connected the two dots on some conversation I've had recently. Is that like I was remembering back when I was early in my MMA career, there was like this group of folks that were like live taekwondo. I don't remember like what the difference was, but like they participated in tournaments that allowed like head kicks and all the like they were like live contact, but they needed sparring partners. And so they would come to our MMA school and be like, "Hey guys, would y'all like mind going live with us?" And we're like fighting each other every Tuesday and Thursday night. So we're like, "Come on." And I remember that like they would go to do, which if you couple this with somebody who does Muay Thai, that little like standing ability to like kick somebody on the head with that, I don't, it's like a question mark kick or like a where they can like axe kick or they can do that, but they're standing on one foot is the problem, and they don't know how to set that situation up to keep that one foot safe. And so they would just do that, and everybody, I mean, like the guys that have been training with us for like 6 months would do this. Just kick that back leg as hard as you could as soon as they went to go to kick you in the head. And they'd all hit their back. To which
But
I was thinking about that and was like, that's a funny memory, and like, haha, Taekwondo sucks. But then I started thinking about it, and there's one of the guys that runs the 10th Planet down here, Johnny. He's a big cat. He's stout. Used to do Mr. Mexico, like bodybuilding. Like, my man's thick and athletic. Like he can do like a full squat, like his butt to his heels, like just sitting there, and he's like 230, 240, and can just squat. That's how he passes guard. And so like if I just agree to just do pure jujitsu to him and just sit in front of him and be like, I'm gonna play sit-up guard, he just slowly passes my guard, and I nothing, and it's the same play over and over and over again. And I'm like, well, that seems a lot like I'm trying to do Taekwondo against a Muay Thai fighter. That's what this feels like. Is that like I'm trying to play because I'm trying to be in a jiu-jitsu room and not get up and scramble and not run away from him, but do the smart thing as somebody who's outsized and not just lay underneath him and be like, I'm going to do jiu-jitsu, which you can. There are the purists that would just look at me. Brandon would just be like, oh, well, just because you suck, because mounts where black belts go to hide. But being in mount underneath you is awful.
Maybe Brandon's mount's not good enough, I guess. He's got that fake punch choke thing he tries to do all the time that y'all give him. But other than that, I mean,
I plead the fifth.
Dude, Nunchuck's meme about when you see Brandon walking
Brandon and the camera crew walk in.
That shit killed me, dog.
Then I went to the comments, and the first comment was Keelan saying sorry.
That's the best. That was the best. That was relatable content for lots of people.
Lots of people. Lots of ukes out there. There's a Brandon McCatherine uke support group.
Not even Luke, just like rolling partner during
just rolling partner
open event.
Those that have been caught on film look down on those that haven't.
Like a class action lawsuit against him in a few years. Have you been injured by Brandon McCatherine posting his roll against you on the internet?
Nunchuck, if you're watching this later, if you're watching this now, please make that
and give him
a class action lawsuit. I want to be the spokesperson.
Are you harmed in the filming of an open mat roll against Brandon McCatherine? You might be entitled to compensation.
It's just the highlight reel of the triangle snaps.
It's like, clearly he's done this 1,000 times. Clearly. Like, look at all these videos of him doing this to these poor, helpless purple belts and below. So, yeah,
that's actually our one and like biggest fan. Mom made a really good point right there. Is that she used to come and she would just sit at class and like learn the class. She would do all the yoga, do the different technical get-ups, and like really helped with some of her mobility and those type things. But then also she was able to like sit there and hear the philosophies and hear the thoughts as to this is why I grab my hand like this, and this is why I grab the neck like that, to make like certain plays happen. And so now she watches jiu-jitsu, which she started watching because of my MMA and all that stuff, and then my sisters got involved. Well, now her and dad sit at home on the weekends when we have all this jiu-jitsu going on, and they're texting me about shows that I'm not even watching. They're like, oh, did you see what Nicky Rod did? I'm like, what?
Yeah, and so that's the thing, like that can exist, I guess, in there, but for a lot of people it's very hard for them to accept that part,
that they can't do it,
that they're gonna need to sit there and maybe just watch and like
just learn the art,
absorb what you can of it. That's one of the hardest things for me, is when people come in, they want to immediately go try to get, I want to get somebody. And it's like, that's literally the opposite philosophy of what this is kind of, you're supposed to be working. If it's self-defense you're after, then kicking people's ass is literally the opposite approach. You
Yeah.
have to be able to do that to be able to defend yourself. Yes, of course. But I think the strategies differ greatly. There's lots of overlapping like things that go with that, but yeah, I would just, what I'm looking to do is be safe. I'm not looking to stay involved in this at all if I could help it, and
Yeah.
to get away as quick as I can.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to grapple you and hold you down and mount you
Yeah.
and like all those things like that necessarily, because you could be doing anything. I'm trying to control your hands. I'm trying to make sure you're not reaching for this or that, or I'm trying to make space, and different things that I wouldn't normally do.
9.9 times out of 10 that I'm in a real world grappling situation, my whole goal is to get back to my feet and as far away from the ground situation I just found myself in.
Run. Just go.
But okay, if we're talking about like this is complete off to the races on this rabbit trail, but if you do find yourself, when do you become offensive in a self-defense situation?
From that far away.
If you can touch my hands extended out in front of me,
as soon as you get close,
too close, I'm offensive.
If I've already asked you, or especially if we've already discussed this, and I've tried to make way to keep that distance between us, if you're coming into my bubble or whatever you want to kind of call it, I'm looking to be proactive necessarily more. It's still, not thinking offensive in the way that people may think about it still.
You're not throwing a haymaker as soon as they come within arm's reach.
No, but I'm looking to tie up maybe or
grab a hand
or something maybe that they may not see coming. Like I'm keeping my hands out in front of me so I can
try to get around behind them.
Yeah,
arm drag.
That
type of
Make them take the swing or whatever and use that to get them to
make the Gracie 101 block grab.
That works, bro. I say like kick them with a front kick, body lock, clinch, trip, takedown. Yeah, I would do that for sure, 100%. And if that's the easy thing, that's the easy thing, right? But it just depends situationally what you're doing. Like if you front kick somebody in the knee, you might not need to do much grappling.
Yeah, it may stop right there.
You might not make that or whatever. And if you're not as big as I am, then maybe you don't really think about some of those options that I think about as easily. But you want to be all the way in or all the way out is the thing that I've always been taught and kind of absorbed as my strategies for fighting scenarios or whatever. It's like I got to be as close to you as possible so that way I can cut down on the ability for you to make space and deliver damage to me. Or I got to be far enough away from you that
where you can't do anything to me.
You got a pocket to start trying to get damage to me. That middle zone is where things really get hairy. And I guess for like sports and things like that, that's where you got to learn.
That's where you're supposed to exist.
You got to be in the pocket. You got to be.
I was just about to say, because what you just described, well, now you're describing what we're finding in the PGF rules is that like that's the boring thing, is the reset, the constant in and out. But it's the smart.
Boring. It's safe is boring.
Right. But it's like, no. We want you to get in the pocket and then not leave the pocket. Like this is like phone booth boxing. Like I want to. You don't have anywhere to go. There's nowhere to leave.
So that's the thing I've realized again over and over and over again throughout my career as a martial artist, fighter. Different iterations of whatever that idea is, because I definitely didn't come into it thinking I was going to be a martial artist or anything like that. I was going to be a fighter.
You were going to fight,
And like as an idea, that's what I was. Not that I was going to be a martial artist, but then somewhere along the way, that philosophy got presented to me in a way that made a lot of sense for my life. And I started trying to adopt a lot of those ideas. And some of that definitely helped with the sport, but then also some of that definitely pulls away from the sport if you're thinking about it completely, and so that's the hard part, is where do I separate the guy who wants to just worry about defending his family and being safe and being confident that he can kind of take care of himself and some show his son some stuff or whatever, and his daughter some stuff or whatever it is that they have to help them with what it is, or the guy who's trying to come out here and make it to the PGF and want to win,
Yeah.
as an athlete in that thing, that there's common ground for those people to exist or whatever for sure. But I think that there's different needs for that person totally in the classroom. So it's interesting. It's very,
Is it
very.
getting to the point that it's a different gym? Like the guy that wants to make it to, because I mean it that happened in the UFC, right? Early UFCs, it was everybody was training in their own fractured camps. They were, this guy was from Baltimore, this guy was from Miami. They trained with their homies that they'd always trained with, where they came up. Everybody did that, and then it slowly crept to the point that, like, if you're going to be a high level UFC fighter, there's about 6 gyms in the world that you're going to train at.
For the most part, I think that's already sort of starting to happen a little
Yeah,
bit. I don't know if it'll always be that way. But I think so, and I think the more professional the thing becomes, that tends to happen because the knowledge is concentrated a lot of times in certain places, or the infrastructure has been concentrated in certain spaces, and so people gravitate to where there's an industry around the
well,
thing
they
that they're trying.
gravitate to the people that won the sport. I mean, that's how football works. That's
Well, yeah,
how
that's what I'm
soccer
saying. So
works.
like you
That's
wouldn't want
how,
to
yeah,
move necessarily to the middle of nowhere to be prepared to compete in some major sport. If you're in the middle of nowhere, people do all the time. They leave to go to some other place to at
and
least do
there's
the camp.
outliers. There's
They
the
do
people
camp.
that,
I say that they do
yeah,
camps. They do other
yeah,
things like this or whatever. And then yeah, there's the people who are just gonna make it either way,
yeah.
and that's they are who they are, right? So I don't know. Is it you see it? You see it all the time. How many people now are like, oh, New Wave or B Team
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
whatever it was. And
But they're from Illinois and they
yeah,
moved
they
to
moved to
Austin or
to
New
all these
York or
places.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and I moved and I joined Tent Plant San Diego. That wasn't like the reason that we moved and went there. But I definitely
But at
switched
that
and
point,
joined.
San Diego was the mecca. So
It was. No, that was a big
yeah,
reason why when the
yeah,
offer
yeah,
us to be able to move, through her job, I was like,
yeah,
definitely,
yeah,
let's go.
yeah.
But I didn't see myself being on this team when I was leaving. Not at all. Uh, but then once I got on the team, we saw a lot of people that did kind of move for a while, that were kind of moving over there to join with
Did you
us.
have any like pre-knowledge
I
of
knew who
10th Planet?
Boogie and Gio was, and yeah, of course, knew who Tent Planet like stuff was or whatever.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
definitely, like
yeah,
I was, in, I've been involved with everything like that kind of for a long. Not like I had firsthand knowledge maybe of a lot of the stuff, but definitely knew
yeah,
of
yeah,
and had looked at stuff. Um, but yeah, we were watching the EBIs before we moved. Like I think the first couple of EBIs we were still lived over in Macon, and I got like pictures and stuff, videos of me and Thomas watching the first EBIs when he was a baby,
yeah,
uh, stuff like that. So definitely was like in the know about it, was interested about it, and then whenever the opportunity came that we were out there, and I did find them because it was like the fourth gym or so that I ended up trying to try out,
yeah,
uh, see if I liked the fit. That's where I ended up staying because they were the coolest and the friendliest to me and had the best, training vibes that I thought everybody felt like they were good, so to say. You know what I mean? Like the
yeah,
room
yeah,
felt good
yeah,
as far as like the level of people that could have been in there or whatever. But overall, they just felt like the better fit for me.
yeah.
But we, like I said, we did see people that transferred, so to say, from other places and came down and moved to San Diego to live with us, and then other schools too, Atos, and things like that are there. So there's a lot of stuff that's been going on. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of that
Right.
stuff that's been going on. But now it's definitely starting to heavily concentrate towards those certain spaces. It seems like for elite level
Yeah, well, I
competition.
mean, I saw this last one when we were there, which I've seen it. I've been to Austin a couple, like not quite a few times now, but like especially post 2020, like Austin became that new little hub where like your up and comers, the people that are like knocking on the door of those top 10, top 5 spots and whatnot, that seems to be the hub where everybody went. You got New Wave, you got 10th Planet, you got B Team, and there's a few others that are in that crew. So like there's a big group there
Yeah,
of
10th Planet
like
Austin and On It was there. They were doing, before
yeah
they're not like in the same space anymore. But like 10th Planet Austin's been really influential in a lot of their stuff, doing the On It
yeah
Invitational and things like that prior
yeah.
to. So there was like a
They
theme
got
there a little bit.
what's the
But
other
then,
one they got? Thursday night
yeah,
jiu-jitsu that
so
they
they've
got.
been,
Yeah,
doing that a while, trying to. Austin has had a decent scene. Texas has had a good jiu-jitsu scene for years. So I think when 2020 happened, the way that things were going in the world with their other legal system things that Texas has,
yeah.
they saw a really, really, really
Big
big boom
influx. Yeah,
people to
yeah.
go. And I think Flow Grappling's offices are there, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, are they? I didn't know
Think
they were
so.
based in Austin.
I think so. That could be wrong. So don't quote me on that. I told you before, I'm not gonna lie to you, but I will be wrong sometimes. So if anybody wants to fact check that, I don't care. Um,
Yeah, I wanted to address this a while ago, but I was letting it go through the flow of conversation. But yeah, Miggy, this is incredible green screen work. Look, my hair even like
hate
flows in.
haters gonna hate. Miggy, where you at,
But
Miggy?
so on the current, I had a really good segue into this and then I lost it, so I'm just gonna like
Miggy
hard
messes up.
segue. Is that the conversation amongst the jiu-jitsu community for like the last month has been how we learn and how we teach jujitsu. Oh yeah, that's earlier you were making the point about the divide in the room of like how people are like, what are they trying to do and what are they trying to learn. Well, one thing that I've thought about in this is that whole like ecological approach versus like traditional approaches and stuff. I think more of the conversation that they aren't really addressing is that like some of these people are the athletes that you're talking about that they just need to they're a defensive end and they know how to cover space from 12 yards across. Like they can cover that in point 0.2 seconds. They've drilled it over and over and over in a shuttle drill where it's like if you just give them a couple of the basic tools and then tell them the goal, they'll figure out how to get to your back versus the person that needs to learn how to even move their body in the three-dimensional space of the or four-dimensional space of the ground. Like what you have to give some of those people more framework to work on. Some of them already have the framework hardwired in. It's like somebody who can go out and just be a wide receiver. Well, they drilled that when they were a child on accident or on purpose, and then their athleticism and all the other things kicked in and they just figured it out. And I guess that feels like a really like elementary way to try to explain that, but like just figuring it out is what I feel like they're saying.
So yeah, I think that, and that's the problem. I think a lot of people have with it is the misunderstanding
Okay.
of that. And I'm not gonna sit here and tell you that I know enough about it to even be, debating anyone on anything of it. But from my understanding of what I've been reading and looking into it and different things like that is there's lots of ways to do what people are calling eco, which is technically the right term would be constraints led approach. Um, Eco, whatever that is, I guess does lead people to think they're just like, oh, you just let them come out there and they'll just like figure it out. The constraints led approach can help it's harder for you to be a coach that way. Actually, you have to know more information about your athletes, specifically which ones who they are, your people in your room, um, what skills they need, what skills they're lacking, like things like that, and then what actually are they doing? What actually do you do when you're doing these things? What causes what to happen? Like when you're here and I'm there, and obviously like a constraint could be your size. You could be constrained by being too big or too small. That's a real thing. So in real life, you need to have big partners sometimes. But if you're only going to do sport, do you really need a bigger partner sometimes? how much of that is important then? Right. That's just kind of one little tiny thing is like, well, if you want to go against big people sometimes because that's who you're afraid of. That's who you think is going to beat you up or whatever it is. Another aspect could be like, and this is where it gets into where you are able to teach it. If I want to hold you down in side control, we'll just use what we call side control as the thing. What is side control?
My chest to your chest, holding you flat on your back from the side.
I mean, that's a general.
I was going as general as I could because I thought that was
Okay.
the answer you wanted.
I mean, no, well, that's what I'm saying. Is like
Okay.
I'm at, that's what I'm. But that's kind of the thing too. Is like I'm asking, like,
Okay.
what is side control? Is twister side control?
Yeah.
Is my chest on your chest right there?
Parts of it is.
But that's not my chest on your chest, like you were
Right.
saying, maybe.
Right.
And then what about scarf hold or judo
Again,
side?
different variations.
Still
Yeah,
side
right there,
control,
judo side. It's got
right?
it in the name. Yeah.
It's still side control. You're still off to the side. You're past their guard. You're past their legs, right?
Yeah.
That's definitely so. That's what I say is like being able to define what is this thing even, and I think that's some of the arguments that people are having is that even I watched that debate, and like a lot of it is like they're not even getting to the argument because they're
Oh yeah.
arguing about the argument.
Yeah. That was. I'm not talking trash towards anybody, but that
No,
was a
it's like
very
it,
productive
it was tough
conversation.
because I've seen this. That's I've seen this same thing happen, and I've had those same kinds of questions and different things from it, and then sitting and just like observing and not needing to jump in and inject
Say
my own
something.
personal thoughts into it, and then also playing with it at the school in different ways and trying to make up my own
Version.
strategies for
Yeah.
this and see if I think that this is actually better or worse or not.
Right.
Because, dude, I learned, and this is the thing. Another part of it for me that I think is a valid, thing. I learned as much from when we were training and doing stuff, like what somebody did to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like they did this to me, so then when it's my turn, I'm gonna try to do that same thing in that scenario. And then I'll start figuring out how to get better from that scenario based on what was done to me in that scenario. That's one thing that you can use as a learning thing from this kind of thing. Also, they're like for side control, what is my goal? Okay, so you said pin you on your back or keep it on your back. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. On your shoulders. We'll go with your
That's
shoulders.
what we've defined in multiple places where that's considered side control is once I've gotten your shoulders flat.
Shoulders pinned, like like the 80cc kind of
Yeah.
behind 75% of it, whatever the back is pinned or whatever. Yeah. Okay. What I could do then is let you start in various positions right there. One with the underhook and maybe no crossface. One with no underhook and a crossface. One with double underhooks.
So basically, you're putting them in the different variations of side control and making them work through it to pin the shoulders.
Yeah, which one of these does the best for pinning the shoulders? And then where do they go when you're not pinning the shoulders?
What does that open up? Yeah.
So then the next game could be, all right, now I want you to get your arms wrapped around their head and shoulder and isolate one arm and the shoulder around each other if they start to spin and get rotation to avoid being pinned on their back. There's darces, there's anacondas, there's seatbelt, there's all kind of things, that leg triangle things that start to develop if you let them just kind of do whatever it is in a way that fits your criteria of the constraint you want them to. Do I want you to learn a head and arm? Do I want you to learn what?
Which is how you teach somebody to give the space to let the thing develop to where they can actually
you
hit.
Can't stand up. If you stand up, you lose. Okay, so now I'm playing with a person who I know is going to be on their knees.
Yeah.
Right. Or now you stand up. Your job is just to try to stand up, which is the opposite of what you just did. Now, what did you see?
Yeah.
So one thing works for one thing, the opposite, it doesn't work for at all.
Which the argument that Big Dan's trying to make is that like what you just described to me is what I've had coaches set up. And some of my favorite style of training is situational sparring.
Yeah,
But only is that my favorite kind of training is if the other guy agrees that this is situational
we're
sparring.
playing the game.
If you don't let me ever start the situation and you just keep blowing through it and keep passing my guard over and over and don't like
We're
we
not past
didn't
the
do
guard.
you just
Yeah.
passed my guard. Good job. Like, but I didn't get to ever play the game that we're
Hmm.
trying to figure out.
Right.
Yeah.
And so there's lots of things like that to where that's the constraint. Then is where they can't do the thing. Like you can't take my back.
Right.
Right. But if I get to my knees, I win.
Yeah.
Like if I get to turtle, I win. That might avoid points. That might be allow me if I'm a wrestler scrambler guy to start scrambling, wrestling up, whatever it is. But if I stay pinned on my back, I'm probably going to lose.
That's exactly how I ran my kids' classes, and that's I accidentally did the
I think it's what
constraint
Eddie did
led
with the
approach.
warm ups. I think
That's exactly all the
it's
warm
the
ups are.
same
Yeah.
version of how everybody. I think everybody's doing this sort of in their own sort of ways. They didn't call it that. They didn't know that. They didn't study constraints led approach or anything like that. They were just doing what they saw as the best, which is again that is the constraints led approach. They've been doing this the whole time. And so the argument was, well, how do you know stuff if your teacher doesn't teach it to you? Well, okay, so all the stuff that I was taught worked, and then all of a sudden I go and like I rolled with Richie, and so I've always been taught to pass half guard. You get the underhook, you try to get chest to chest, you try to get them flat or whatever it was. And then you can start passing from there or whatever. But man, that was almost a death trap every single time for him because
Yeah.
he has a whole game built off of that.
On the
You
other
get
side,
you
yeah,
don't get hook, so now you're on the bottom with an overhook. And then so
yeah,
I was just like, well, then that's wrong now.
yeah, yeah,
And so then should I ever like wow, I don't should never use like so then what happens in that case is you've got to learn that different situations require different strategies, different body types. Okay, so now you're going with long people.
yeah.
Is this still the best strategy against somebody who's 6'3" as it is against somebody who's 5'8"? And so that's where you have
Probably
to be a
not.
really, really,
Yeah,
really, really, really good coach, teacher, or whatever for these things to really work. And I think a lot of us don't understand what it is, but we're doing versions of it already. But people need to drill or what we call drilling with the no resistance kind of stuff like that to go through the motions. I'm not totally against that. I'm not saying that's wrong or right or whatever, but I do know that there was a lot of wrong things that develop from that kind of drilling, and nobody
yeah,
ever really does that right. Or either you only do it right if the other person is flowing, quote, with you and you're going through specific things, which then is that now you're doing the thing again. You know what I'm saying? It's just a different version of trying to do the thing. And then
right.
situational or what we call positional sparring. Is that just as simple as like pass guard? Okay, what does that mean?
Yeah, no,
So broad.
I think the situational is like more like a goal oriented or like you have to give
The
because like that's
task
what I
based,
noticed with the
right?
kids. Well, like all right, there's
What's
a
the
game.
task? What do you want them to do?
There's a simple game that I started doing and we do it with the kids classes here is that like it's a like butt scoot tag.
Hmm.
Is that like you got to butt scoot the tag? Well, originally the kids immediately asked. They were like, "Well, can I front roll?" And it was like, "Yeah, sure, okay, you can front roll if you find yourself in a situation you need to front roll or back roll. Yeah, that's in the rules too." Then you turn around and the whole room's just doing front rolls and they're just rolling around, and you're like, "Well, the point of this was for you to learn how to scoot around on your butt." But then they got the repercussion that they all got like 5 minutes into it and they're all sitting in one spot like this, like whoa, and they're all dizzy, and you're like, yeah, you got the repercussion of going outside the situation. And I think that like for one, humans we get hung up on names and we get hung up on like,
Labels.
labels and like trying to label it and call it like I think the biggest thing to make like the situational or the eco or like whatever you want to call the approach, the developmental stage is like up here. I think Chris said something about the eco approach being a really good approach before live drilling, but once you're a purple belt, and it's like, well, you can get somebody to
So wait,
the
what is live drilling?
Live drilling. Okay. 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 I think live drilling could be the way that I treat live drilling is that you have something that's a complete flow that we both know. And that's, for us, the warm ups. If we both know the warm ups, we can get to a point that we're running through those at a live speed, but then like as it gets further in and you're running that live speed, well then now give me a reaction at the end of each thing. And every time you give me a reaction, well, maybe I wasn't placing something right, or maybe something is different about your body. And so I need to alter the move that we have in place. But the movements in drilling are agreed upon movements that we can flow through.
Hmm.
I feel like that's what live drilling is. That's my definition. If you ask me what that is, but
I don't think that's wrong either. The way you describe that, I think that's a good way of learning for some people and lots of people too. And I think that's the thing is like what is, and this is the argument. I think at the end of the day, it's not like who's right or wrong. What is the best for you, most efficient way for you as a coach to have your students or athletes or whatever get the information they need to be successful, not to have the information necessarily that I have or that I want. You know what I mean? Like that. Here's some notes I
what are
took.
the core? What's the core information that they need?
Well, so that's the thing is like, I took some notes. Hold on.
Okay, okay, okay.
Um, so there's the constraints led approach is teaching and coaching method rooted in ecological dynamics, right? It emphasizes how movement and decision making emerge naturally based on how we interact with each other and the certain constraints. You know, main ones being like the individual constraints. That's like your size, what type of learner you are, your motivation, whatever that is. What are you trying to do? Your emotions, previous experience, task constraints, which is what I think a lot of people are thinking about when they're thinking about this, specific to the activity, rules, equipment, goals, and the way the task is structured. That's most of what the argument's
Yeah.
about. And then environmental constraints, right? How much of this is then you'd need to be training in the environment, perhaps that you'd be competing in, like the weather, the playing surface, opponent behaviors, and then cultural, like things like that, or
Having a
whatever it is,
cage and yeah,
stuff like that. Okay, and so then instead of prescribing techniques to you or telling you exactly what to do, manipulate, like I was saying, the constraints that guide you to self discovery, right? They call it self organization, is where you figure out how to like develop it on your own to make it work for you. What they call implicit learning is another thing that said. Okay, let's see what the examples in grappling are really quick. Simple stuff. Let's say try not to get. I'm not trying to act like I'm smart. I googled some of this stuff. Me and Chat GPT were talking, and I've been reading and watching lots of interviews and stuff.
I think that's the
Um,
definition of smart, Stephen, is that you educated yourself. But continue.
that's not why I'm here. But like so, you could like limit their grips. You could force them to find alternative controls, like different things like that. It's like you want to grab
Yeah.
this way, grab this way. For me, like I've been playing with it some. Like let's go from guard example. Full close guard. And depending on what the different tasks are, what am I trying to do from the bottom or the top?
What's a task you give them when you're
Uh,
talking close guard?
so so let's just say, for example, somebody's got you down. You're down, whatever the case was. Now you're down. They have double overhooks and they've wrapped their legs around your waist or around your
Okay.
torso into what we call close guard. Okay. Your job is to try to get your hands off the floor, right? And then try to be able to get up and get to your feet somehow, right? Without them being connected to you. You have
So
to first
you
open up
separate
their
yourself
knees.
from the
So
yeah.
sometimes we want them to just first thing is just get your hands off the mat over and over and over. And they're trying to constantly keep putting your hands back on the floor. That's the first game. Then you try to do the same thing. Or then maybe I don't make them do the overhooks. We already get to where now you've got your hands on the body. Now you got to open the guard. Try to open it from your knees. See if you can open it from your knees first. All right.
without having to
Now,
get to your feet.
now we're gonna let you stand up this time, as you're trying to open it also, and see which one works better. Do you think it works better when you're on your knees opening it, or do you think it works better when you're on your feet trying to open it? Is there a
Yeah.
middle ground thing that works better for you? Bottom player, you can switch from your overhooks or whatever to an underhook on one of the legs. What's an underhook on one of the legs? It's like a scoop grip,
Scoop grip, yeah, they're like
right?
hook
Can
grip,
you
yeah.
overhook one of the legs if they start to stand? What happens?
You
So is an
start.
overhook and an underhook the same thing if you're tethered to their waist? And is this why reverse close guard works?
Yeah, because it works in both
Because it's the
directions.
same shit.
Yeah,
And so if
yeah,
you can understand it here, can you easily now start to understand it from here with these basic frameworks of you're doing the same thing now that you're turned around?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Or with this example of me tethered to your waist with my legs, as long as I'm there, what's available to me, if I'm facing
if
you,
I have
then
an arm, if I have a
yeah.
leg, if I have what's the difference between an arm and a leg when I'm facing this
Or and
direction
then
versus
now
that
going
direction?
back into one of the other ones, like trying to get that loop from the neck into the armpit with something. Does that exist in the close guard for them? How important is that if they can get that on you? Because that's an underhook, not an overhook. So then now maybe we need to play this game with an over and an underhook. Oh, what
Choose
happens if you
between
have
which
double
one.
underhooks now?
Yeah,
Now the game is bottom person, you have to stand up and get away. Top player, you're holding them down.
you're pinning them down. Now you
Right,
have
because
to
that's
stop
a thing
that.
that happens, right? Because you're a guy on the bottom and people are trying to get away from you. You're trying to drag them back into your guard to keep
Yeah,
playing your guard, and that's how you trip them. That's how you sweep them. That's how you get them off balance
yeah.
and get them. Or you're the bottom
That's how.
player and you're like, "F this, I got to get up." And as you're
Yeah,
trying to get up, they start sticking their head out. They start reaching, da 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 da, and you learn your game from there of how to do whatever against whatever they are.
and then as that develops, the top guy starts to figure
Now
out
they've got a
how to.
single leg. They've got their arms
Yeah,
wrapped around your leg, connected, between the knee and the hip. What happens? Can you dump them onto their butt from there now that they've gotten to their knees?
I've
Or
only participated as a
and
visitor in
again, these
most
are
of
just
these.
things I'm playing with. If these are wrong, somebody let me know. Like, and I don't think it's wrong, but if there's better ideas, I'm open.
Well, this
It's
seems a lot like
interesting.
what I've seen. Like I said, I've seen it from the side, and I've participated as a visitor in these type of practices. So I've never really been a wrestler, but this sounds a lot like how wrestling practices go. Is they
Yeah,
give them a goal that's a small piece of the goal of of a wrestling match, and then they just do it for an
you
hour.
understand what
They
you're doing.
fight for it for an hour.
Yeah, and you
Yeah,
figure it
yeah,
out.
yeah.
You figure out
And
what works and what doesn't work for you.
a good wrestling practice, God, I
But they show
hate.
you stuff though. That's the thing is like we break it apart in the middle of it. Sometimes like in the game, like I'll see whatever's happening. We'll come back and I'll say, "Hey, did anybody have like success doing the thing using this?" No, nobody really. Okay, you did. What did you think? Why did you think it was more successful for you to
For
do
you and
this
not everybody
than
else.
that?
Yeah, yeah.
And then why did everybody else think they were more successful doing the other thing? Like, what did you think that the other one was better than? Okay, well, here's what I think when I was making this about this. Also, here's my thoughts on it. So, if you guys want to try what I was thinking, also, any one of these things could be true that we all just said. But here's kind of where I was going with it. So now I'm not teaching you a specific pattern. I'm just teaching you a thought in the
You're just
moment.
showing that the pattern exists, and
It's,
then showing it to them. And if it resonates, then it resonates. If it doesn't resonate, then you were in a different pattern. Or you can boil down to the fact that you were wrong,
yeah,
and you can discover that yourself. And you
yeah.
don't have to have
And
the whole ego
I've
clash of
also
me
figured out
telling you
that
you're
maybe
wrong.
I was wrong.
That too. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I saw
yeah.
somebody come up with something, and I was like, "Oh, do you know what you just
I
did?
mean, it's like okay,
This
it's
is your
like what
first
we were
class. How did you do that?"
when we were in Florida for that Jean-Jacques seminar. You remember how he taught that? And
It's the same thing.
he taught one simple concept that made everybody go, "Oh." And then everybody started playing with it, and he stepped back, and then he'd be like, Sean Applegate would do something, and he'd be like, Sean, do that again. And then he'd do it, and he'd be like, everybody practice what Sean was just doing. And then like somebody else would do something. He'd be like, hey, do that again, do it again. And they'd be like, everybody see that? Yeah, yeah. Add that. If you like that, add that. And you're like, oh, hey, this is how
Yeah.
Eddie became Eddie.
Yep. It is, and that's That's part of it. So then that goes back into the other thing I was going to try to say about the argument that they were having, about they were arguing about the argument more than the thing right there, because some of that is like, well, don't you need your teacher to teach you stuff from whatever, so that you'll know from their experience? That's how the human da da da. That's how they learn, is from people saving the information and passing it down. Don't you need that? And they'll teach you that so you can drill that, and that's what you'll know. And then it's like, I mean, sort of, that's right, I think, but also if you'll think about it, you're arguing about it in the way that's proving the eco approach to it, because what is it? What is the new thing? Why is there a new thing? If what we're already doing is optimal, why is there another better thing that your coach now has come up with on his own somehow that's made them the guy? He made it up. That just proves it. He had a problem. He didn't have an answer to it. Everybody else's answers wasn't working anymore. He made up some shit that started working. Now everybody's doing it. He didn't have to drill that. He did it while he was getting his butt kicked. And he got tired of getting beat and said, oh, I could just drag his arm across right here and have his back.
Has anybody else ever tried that? Yeah.
No, you guys didn't know this? That's crazy. I didn't know either. And then now we're all dragging arms.
This is called the Steven drag.
Yes, I'm the first one that saw this.
I'm the first arm dragger ever. Right? But that's it, right? And that's what I'm saying, is like, and I think that's part of what I was saying with the boogie thing and the 10th planet system stuff, is like, I think a lot of what Eddie did and the system does and did was look at what's really being successful, tried to adopt it, and then also look to counter what was being the mainstream kind of thing. We're going to look to beat what is being successful. Dude, that's competition at the top. Yeah. Who's number one? Yeah. Everybody's trying to knock them off. If you're number one, you can't keep doing the same thing you've been doing forever, or eventually everybody's going to be doing that, and they're going to be doing the thing that you didn't know. Am I wrong in saying this, that it also does feel like that there's multiple organizations now that are kind of exist this way, but I do feel like that the way that we approach the system and the way that it happens is that we were one of the early gyms or affiliations that was not everybody trains in the same room. And we were able to have almost like an international team before anybody else. Everybody else, you had to go to New York to train with John. You had to go to LA to train with the different people. Eddie has black belts all over the world that have gotten to the top. Now, the guys that are playing at the top 5, of course, they all get together and they train together. But even the guys that are playing at the top 5 aren't...
they don't live together.
They all meet up to train, but they don't train in the same room for real. Like a couple of them are like same room guys, but like most of them have their own spots they train in. But they're able to communicate and talk to each other and adapt the system because of the way that it's been approached.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's it. And that, like, you want to think about a thing that maybe could solidify some of that too, is like rubber guard. The first rubber guard that was taught from Eddie is just, at this point pretty rudimentary to a lot of people, and very basic and simple to a lot of people that know rubber guard stuff. Through that thing you're talking about, though, people seeing it and being exposed to it, but then not living in there and whatever, and they've just modeled it their own way to be successful. They've made up new things. They've made, like, the Hindula team by Ben Eddy or whatever. That's it works. Yeah. Is it the most reliable thing out there? Not for many people, but for him, it's pretty darn reliable. So would you tell him to not do that because everybody else can't do it? That's kind of dumb. Yeah. That's kind of dumb.
But right? But then it's not even everybody else can't, because you see the ones that are built like him and the ones that are like coming up that are that young rubbery crew that like they can do it.
Now
they do it, and then now they've got their own variations.
Now you're getting it. That's it. You look like this.
I was told
you're built like this. You're structured like this. So maybe this kind of thing would work for you because that's typically been successful for people who are like you structurally.
Yeah, I think that the biggest change that the sport needs and is getting is that like gone are the times that like the coach cannot be putting just their style on their entire crew, because everybody's going to be built different. Everybody's going to have different approaches. Everybody's going to have different baselines. Everybody's going to have different. So like
Well,
the
and you're fighting
idea
different
that
people every time.
yeah, it's everything, the differences and the ability to allow the growth is, like I said, the earlier, is that like that form of teaching kind of feels like that. As I say this, I'm thinking that not necessarily because of the argument we all witnessed on the internet, but
Bro,
like
where did the Kimura come from?
a really strong guy that could twist arms off, that his name was Kimura.
Why did it become part of it?
Why did what become a
Why
part
did
of
the
it?
Kimura become part of jiu-jitsu?
Are you asking me because you know the answer?
Yeah, I know the answer.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know the answer to that.
Because Ilya got Kimura'd.
Oh, I feel you. I feel you. And so they went and
What is the
learned.
Americana? Bob Anderson started
Okay.
Americana-ing people, and they're like, what the this is cool.
What's this guy doing?
I'm going to do that. Show me that. I see what you're doing. Now we're going to start doing that. And then it was modified and adapted to be towards more than just whatever it was from the whatever position that it was shown. You know, it's now become all the different things we know about Kimuras and that other, you know, figure four styled lock on the arms. Barata platas and daratatas.
Yeah, I was told earlier. I had a pretty good MMA coach that pointed that out to me early on. Was like, look at people that look and act and move and like that resonate with you, and that's the stuff you should look for. Like, don't try to be me. Don't try to be the guys in your training room that are, you know, not like you. Like, do the stuff that you in your body can do, and find people that look like you and do that to model your game.
Yeah, and I remember the first person that kind of told me that was probably Cole Miller. He told me like Buchecha was similarly built and sized as I was, and to start, you know, trying to see if I could mimic things I saw. I never trained with him ever, but I definitely watched and studied a bunch of things and adapted it to the other stuff, the Marcelo Garcia type stuff that everybody else was showing us that still works, but doesn't work the same way for me.
Yeah.
You know,
you have to modify it.
Yeah, and that was basically what the answer was when we got to go to the Marcelo seminar too. Is like, yeah, I'm organizing it in this way so that way I can predict the pattern.
Yeah,
you can choose to do any one of these things you want to do, but
you
can always just cycle it back up this way. If that's what I think is like, if I miss this, I can just cycle it back up that way. If you just marry yourself to any one idea, you're definitely not doing it right. Because everybody's different. That's the thing. Is like, and that's the thing is like, where should I put my hand? What do you mean?
Depends.
Yeah. Where's his hand? You know, does he not have
What's
a
he
hand?
doing?
Bro, that question at the seminar is like, the dude was like, what do you do? What do you do if you can't grab that with your right hand? He's like, because like, what do you mean? You just got to kind of crunch up and grab it. And like, the dude's like, no. What do you mean? Like, what if you don't have a hand? And we all look over at the dude and he doesn't have a hand. He's like literally handless on that one side. And it's like, oh shit, what do you do? Like that's tough, right? He's got a specific constraint that is not exclusive to him, but then also it's dude, and like the guy who was at the qualifiers in Decatur, that was the amputee.
Oh yeah.
He's got specific things that make him very, very difficult to deal with.
Yeah,
but also in other settings, he would be in tons of trouble having to deal with other people's stuff.
Yeah.
But in this setting, he's got very unique problems to deal with that you don't get to work around much.
Well, you're not straight ankling that side.
No, and you're not playing any traditional stuff off of leg stuff at all.
Yeah, because there's not the other leg to use for control.
How strong is his upper body if y'all are in the same weight class?
That too. Yeah.
Right? Y'all the same weight. He don't have legs. Your legs are usually a good bit of people's weight. And so now he's that strong too. I was like, wow, this is interesting, and so props to him for even getting out there and doing it. I'm not saying dude's got advantages or whatever, but that's it's just as somebody who's watched this stuff a lot, even like that dude, Kyle Maynard, you know, with the triple quad ankle that was doing some fighting stuff. It's like, you can't, like, he was doing MMA, you can't hit him while he's grounded. He's always grounded. Or like you couldn't kick him or whatever while he's grounded or whatever like that. He's always grounded. You can't knee him
so
in the
now
head.
you have to grapple him,
Always
and then you don't get to grapple him in any of the traditional manners that you've ever
try to punch at him and stuff or whatever. And then you don't know how to, you can't pin the same ways. So there's lots of things. And then the guy who had the one arm, that was the MMA fighter that got pretty successful. He had the other part of his elbow just a little bit so he could make a hook grip with that arm, with like this part of the elbow down there was to be there and enforce stuff. And so his chokes were really good still, but then also
there's no hand to attack.
Couldn't hand fight. Like one of our teammates fought him. One of my guys that I trained with it back in the day in Moultrie and stuff, he fought him and he got choked, and it was like you could see that he was reaching and it wasn't there
from where the hand would be. There's nothing to peel out.
The normal thing that everybody does to defend it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so like
because the hand is a weak point.
that's the grip. Right.
Yeah.
That's the leverage point to break it down on that reinforced hand. But then when it's not there, the reinforcement is coming from somewhere else.
Huh.
So it's just interesting, you know, the leverage is a big deal. And then again, that circles back into the whole thing again now.
I was about to say, those are constraints.
Right. Everything is. That's what it turns out to be. You know, like you said, the guy who's this D1 or whatever defensive lineman athlete guy, he's already gained all this other stuff. So he doesn't need as much as Miss Amy coming in, who's not played football professionally or any athletics much in the last several years, and then she's just trying to come in there and enjoy herself, get healthy, and maybe potentially know a couple things if she has to know them. Hopefully she never has to know them for real.
Well, I mean, if you're talking about the general population, like she and I've talked about this a lot, is that like the general population, like most of your elderly like problems like hip surgeries and different things, like when people are on the tail end of their life, the biggest problem they have is falls. And like I worked on an ambulance for a little while when I was in my early 20s, and one of the biggest things that you have to go do a lot of times is like there's people that just fall, and the biggest thing that their problem is that they don't know how to get back up. And if you break it down and think about it, somebody who's in their 60s, if they haven't done at least some yoga, they haven't been below the plane of their hip in 30, maybe 40 years. They don't even know that is in existence. And so when you find yourself on the ground, for one, you don't know how to control the aspect of when you're headed to the ground. So that's why you end up with the broken wrist and the broken elbows and the broken shoulders and all the different stuff, because they've never fallen. And then once they're down there, they're injured and they've never gotten back up uninjured. So now injured, they're not going to get back up. And so I think that you could break it down all the way down to just the sole skill of getting back up from the ground is the most basic core skill that you have to learn.
Taking a fall and getting up.
Then you can add another person into it of now somebody made you fall and they're on top of you. Now get out from underneath them and get back up. And then the rest of the sport builds off of that.
And that's literally how it was done. Right.
Look at that.
That's it. That's it. And if you already can stand up, you don't need me to tell you how to stand up.
Right.
And if you already can just be athletic right there, if somebody's trying to hold you down, you don't need me to tell you how to put your hand exactly right here, put your foot exactly on this spot, and then do exactly this rotation. You just kick off and fucking get up.
And you need to do that a couple of times until somebody is just as athletic.
Just this problem, now we'll figure it out.
Yeah, until somebody can now.
Then I told you
when you won't understand why you shouldn't turn away from me as you get up, because I'm going to jump on your back as you do it. Like I've seen that, like I said, in the kids class. You can teach them technical get ups all they want to, but when they panic and they
There's no
get pushed
consequence.
down, they go to get up and they turn away to run away. Well, it's like, well, all right, I'm going to give you the kid that understands that my goal is to take his back. So as soon as he turns to run away, I'm just going to jump on his back. And it goes, oh, maybe I should do that technical get up thing. Well, if I had just sat there and told you that and made you a million times break, fall, and do a technical get up, you don't understand that lesson. So I agree with you on this interpretation of the ecological.
This is what I've gathered so far. So again, I'm not that deep into it. This is a thing that is, there's studies and studies and studies about it. In any other coaching or athletic thing, this basically exists or whatever, in the way that we constrain you to certain patterns of movement or different things, like you can only do this, or we're limiting the reps to certain small percentages of what you're doing, makes it to where you start to do it or whatever. Because like, what baseball or whatever is like, we're hitting off the tee.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. What does that mean? Well, it could be out front, it could be deep on the plate, it could be inside, it could be outside, it could be high, it could be low. Are you trying to hit it straight ahead? Are you trying to hit it on the ground? Are you trying to hit it to the right? Are you trying to hit it to the left? I want you to hit every ball to the right side, and try to hit the back of the net or whatever, if you're in the batting cage, like on a line drive. That's a good way to hit every time, pretty much, in any way, kind of those hard things.
Yeah.
And then launch angle, whatever. But just like, there's certain things that are always kind of good and always kind of bad in certain ways. You don't want to like hit a weak little rollover ground ball that's just, rolling up there to anybody. But where the ball is pitched to you can determine how that's hit. So
that's the variability. Yeah.
And if you set the tee in certain places and you condition yourself to be able to hit it a certain way from any
if it's
of those
here,
positions,
I know it's going to go there. If it's here, I know it's going to go there.
And then now you get the speed of it. Now is the timing, right? That's the next thing of it, right? So some people don't have good timing. Some people have to develop the timing a lot. And then now you got a pitcher that is going to do something else because he knows that you have his timing down. He's going to break his rhythm. And now you have to try to, now we're going against each other. This isn't as easy as it was on the tee or on the machine or with coach throwing me the ball every time exactly the same way. So you still, it's the same. But what do all the pros do every day? I go out here and hit on the tee first and make sure that I got my swing path right and everything's all good, blah, blah, blah. Then I'll go out there and start doing whatever it is, or I'll get my reps fielding the little quick things or whatever and just pull the ball up the right way, the release of the hands from the glove. Why would you just do the release of your hands from your glove 1,000 times a day? How many bobbles happen in that moment to where if you're not sure of it, then bad throw.
Yeah.
So just different, so many little variables like that of like, okay, well, you're going to use a glove now that's completely flat. There is no pocket. So you need to learn how to field it with that so you can make that transfer or whatever it is. So you give them a different tool.
Not rely on just
good with your glove. Now let's use not even your hand, right? You can't even squeeze with the glove hand. It's the platform to make the grab so you can do that correct type of extraction in the right position. Because your glove is great for what it's for, but it allows you to kind of cheat the process if you use it well, right? You're getting that much more space of whatever it is. But if you can hone it into where it's really supposed to be, dude, catching a fly ball is basically like blocking a punch. Basically,
I feel the connection.
Right? You try to line your eyes up with the ball, and then you put the glove up to make sure that it doesn't hit you in the face. Like you can be off to the side a little bit, right? So you can see. So I'm not saying like cover your face like you're a dummy and get hit in the face, but in general, right? You line it up with your eyes, and you can know that it's not going to hit you because you put your glove where it's at. Right. And then if I block that punch, I can block with my left punch and throw my right punch.
Yeah.
Guess what that is? That's catching and throwing.
Really? Yeah. Huh.
What's a fastball or like a good pitcher? There's a nice overhand, maybe, that would lead to a takedown, perhaps. Or you can get.
You're deep into baseball season now, aren't you?
It's the last several years, like working with Thomas and these things, dude. I swear to God, listen, if these kids could fight, I bet.
Yeah, I mean the
a lot of
pivoting, like yeah. The mechanics.
rotation,
Yeah.
the hitting in the box is the same hit
Did you
for
never
strike.
have that come through like when you were training like a guy that was like a college baseball player or something like that turned kickboxer? Like I knew a couple of those guys.
I developed that on my own.
Yeah.
Like I hypothesized a lot of these things on my
Yeah.
own before I had the information that I really had. And then funny story, I was in San Diego. I always tried to teach a lot of the stuff based off of some baseball, like things that I
Yeah.
had,
Yeah.
kickboxing. And then I had a student, and he was like, my friend, I'm from Israel. We do not play baseball. I don't understand these
The
references,
references. Yeah.
And I looked around the room, and I was like, damn, I bet a lot of y'all don't know baseball, do you? And they're like, no, I've never played baseball in my life. And it's like, okay, well then all these things I've been saying for months and months have made
No,
practically no sense to you. But to me, as a kid who played lots of baseball growing up or whatever, I just kind of started intuiting this. And then now, years and years later, I'm like, was this why I was a good striker a little bit?
I had that conversation. Oh, what was that? That was 2 nights ago. We were doing like a wrestling thing, and it was like a pivot step that he was doing to like do the entry. And I think it was something that he had seen on the PGF that he was talking about. Oh yeah, it was like how the PJ Andy, like how Andy did the like turnaround type of deal. Anyways, it's not specific. There was a pivot that was the like main step, and I was seeing everybody, they were doing little choppy steps, and I was like, so you're just planting one foot and pivoting like in basketball? And he was like, yeah. And then later he came by and he's like, I've never played basketball. And I was like, oh yeah. I was like, it's a rule. Like when you pick up the ball and stop dribbling, you have to pivot. And I was like, but that's what they tell you, is like you stick the foot and you pivot. You don't do little choppy steps because then that's traveling. And I was like, but that reference made no sense to anybody but me.
It's funny, right? And then that again, this is that thing again. It kind of goes back to that. You could learn this from many different avenues, from many different things, and then that's Musashi, right? From one thing to 10,000. And so once you learn the relationship of the body and the body on the body, and how it's organized and how it moves, and then what is your objective, people are going to either push or they're going to pull. They're going to extend or retract. That could be called many different kind of things, right? But if you start controlling certain points of the body certain ways, it can only do certain other things now. And then size matters, strength matters. That's when we start talking about that other stuff more.
Yeah.
Right. But we can have certain things that are true. If I isolate your head and your arm, right, and you've got like this kind of position, this is weak for that arm. You could be very strong otherwise, but that's definitely very weak. And so what does that do to a person? And what can you do from there, depending on what your goal is? Are you trying to score points? Are you trying to not get hurt? Are you trying to get up and get away? Are you trying to reach in your pocket and get your knife?
Yeah.
Like what are
What's
we
the
doing
end
here?
goal? Yeah.
Right. Are you just rolling with your buddy out there laughing and like about to try to roll him over? And just keep on laughing because neither one of y'all's got control yet.
Yeah.
That's fun to me too. Right. But that ain't what I want to do when things are getting real.
Yeah.
Right. How much do we say that once things get real, we'll cut out half of this stuff right away?
Right.
Then why are we even doing half of this stuff?
Then why are you doing that half that needs to be cut out?
Okay. So then how much is controlling hands important for self-defense? Then we talked about that maybe, right? If I'm controlling your hands.
Yeah.
Okay. So what if I'm doing that in jiu-jitsu? Like a jiu-jitsu match? What if I'm just really controlling your arms and your hands? Dominating the hand fight.
Like
I'm winning.
Yeah, you're winning the. I
It's still true. The same thing is true, right? If I can cross face you well in any form, you can't turn that way.
Yeah,
that's always true, right? So, what situations is it not necessarily the best thing to do?
Maybe when I'm trying to get you to come back into me, when I want you to turn into me.
That's where
I need you to open up.
Oh,
if I'm closing all the gaps and I need you to open up, well, then I'm hindering my progress. Yeah.
Then that goes back into the thing we were speaking maybe a little bit about Andy Varela, and then now where the rules do dictate the fight here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so in an eco constraints led, whatever you're saying, now you got 6 minutes. You got to submit them, dog.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
not the same thing anymore.
yeah.
I think that's why it's starting to make a little sense to me that way too. Like the whole thing together is because
Yeah.
we all play so many different games within jiu-jitsu. Not saying like our personal game, but like
No.
point
But like the
Naga,
game, yeah.
IBJJF, ADCC, PGF, CJI. What
Because people
you
go, "How do
digress.
I win?" You go, "Well, which game are you playing?"
Yeah, which one do
Yeah,
you want to do? But they all have elements of the same thing that are gonna lead you to that path better,
yeah.
right? The things that like points are not designed for you to just score and sit back and like quit. The points are
Supposed to
designed to
progress.
lead you down a path to dominance, to be winning and dominating and controlling a fight or a self-defense kind of scenario. You score for things that would be dominating a person. You
Not
don't
camp.
score just
Yeah,
because I got a little shot off on him and
yeah,
it went
yeah.
in. It's
We're
like,
not
no,
scoring. At the end of the day, we're not scoring goals.
no, that's the thing. It's not the same thing. The
Yeah.
points are for dominance.
Yeah,
Right. And the more dominant you are, the more points you should have. But also that should be leading you to a path for submission.
yeah.
I just, I don't know. I struggle, man. I don't know if I'd be excited to win 44 to nothing in jiu-jitsu or stuff like that. Like 100, you
No, that would frustrate. If I won 44 to nothing, that means that I just was doing a break dance on you, and I couldn't find any of the submissions that I was looking for.
I mean, it's good, right? I'm not saying that's not the good thing, but like overall, it would be very frustrating for me because I don't want to do that. That means I was on,
I don't equate them as the same win though. I
that
don't
should have
equate the
been,
points win with the submission win. It's not the
you know,
same.
well, so then again, this is it. The points was a constraint that was designed to help people learn how to do jujitsu the way it was supposed to quote be
Yeah,
done in the eyes of the
make it
person who
work.
organized
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
In the eyes of the person who organized it. That's why the points came into play because
yeah.
that's what they wanted to see in jujitsu. They wanted to see you doing these certain things. So we incentivized it by giving you points. So now you're going to play the game that we're asked you. Now we incentivize that with dollars. That's the constraint now. Your pocket. And so the more that you can do this thing faster, better, more exciting, the more you can get
Entertaining,
paid.
more visually pleasing, and
Not the same thing. It's not jujitsu anymore that way. We're using jiu-jitsu to play this new game. And that's literally ADCC. That's literally all the things that are not
CJI,
IBJJF.
PGF, just new versions of incentivizing a different version of a game.
That's what wrestling does. They incentivize the pinning and the control and the dominance because they think that that's what is actually the most dominant thing.
Yeah.
And that leads to submissions, whether you want to say it or not, getting pinned and getting just jammed up or whatever and getting dominated. You'll feed a submission to them eventually on the way out accidentally, or you'll just lay there and take it.
Oh,
eventually that's what's going to happen.
That's true. That is true.
Like it sucks if you. I've been dominated before, man. I know. Like I've been out there and just nothing's working. Waiting's not working. Moving's not working. Moving faster is not working. Like
seems like just get up and walk away is the only thing that's going to work.
Answer that would work in this scenario, and then that's what I would do in real life if I find myself there.
If I was getting beat up this bad and I'm 4.5 minutes in and nothing's worked, I'm getting out.
I don't want to do this anymore.
You're better than me. I'm out.
Right? And so it's different, But now if I can make it to 10 minutes and get to overtime, I might take this beating a little longer because I know that once we get to that game, I know how to play there.
Tricks. I got my tricks.
Let me get my shot off now.
Yeah.
But the other way, I didn't get a chance. I was never going to catch up.
Yeah. I was behind since the whistle
for hours. I don't know how long you were going to beat me, but it was going to be a long time.
Which we've seen that. Yeah, we've seen guys wait 2.5 hours.
It's not me calling anybody else out. I'm saying I've tried. I've been that dude, and it sucks. But when the rules allow me to keep going, I'm gonna keep trying to go and play and wait and make you get bored or whatever that is. But now if you only give me 6 minutes, then I'm gonna start elbowing a little bit and bumping.
I'm gonna try to overwhelm you and make you. Yeah.
My headlock on me, and it's like, oh man, I normally wouldn't stick my head down here. Why'd I do that? Because I was in a hurry.
Yeah,
in a hurry.
Yeah.
So,
well, another good day, another good show in the books. I think it's good that everybody's having these conversations. I think that the conversations that have been out there haven't been very productive because there's a lot of that, like, I've been waiting to use this word since we started talking, was the ad hominem that's going on here. People
Amongst a lot of
attacking.
listeners.
They're out there attacking each other's ideas, and they're attacking each other, and people being like, "Well, Dan, you're stupid," or being like, and so it's not becoming a conversation of people. I told you while I was watching the debate that I was like, so it just feels like the same argument of a bunch of people trying to name a move after themselves, just in a different flavor of like everybody being like, well, I coach this way, well, I do this way, well, I do this way. Well, it's like, no, that's not the conversation.
I think that's what I was saying, is that, and I'm not saying who is right or wrong, but I think that people aren't getting it when they're trying to prove their point in these arguments with like Sounders and stuff like that. He's not even arguing with you yet, because you
Yeah.
haven't even formed your argument.
Yeah.
You
But then he
there's a
arguing
reasonable
because you're
way,
arguing with him. Yeah.
but debating and like logical discourse, like you said, there's certain rules and things that come up, and like you beg the question. You have certain fallacies and things like that. It's like your assumption is the answer to your own question, and that's not how this really works. You're saying that it's true because that's what you believe is true. We don't
And
know
maybe
it's
it is
true,
true to you.
but it's not for everybody. And
Yeah.
so we
Yeah.
assume that is true and that can be true, but are other things also true? And they don't want to agree that other things could also be true lots of times.
Yeah.
He's not like, I'm not saying you should never drill or do, like, there's lots of drilling things that work. We talked about it,
Yeah.
footwork and different
Yeah.
patterns and things like that for your personal body movement. But is drilling on a dead body any good for you?
No.
Maybe.
Yeah.
People like
Yeah.
grappling dummies and things like that. That could be a constraint in and of itself. So it's not, that's the thing. You're arguing because you want to be right. You're not arguing to understand. And I'm not saying you, Isaac, I'm saying the broader
The
person. The constraint could
broad
be that
view.
the person's not fighting back. Because what do you do when a person doesn't fight back?
Yeah.
How do you armbar somebody who's limp?
Yeah. Yeah. Because that's a whole nother conundrum. Yeah.
Jiu-jitsu doesn't work if you're not fighting.
If you don't play the game.
Right? You just stand up and walk away. It's over.
Yeah.
But I'll agree to stay down here and play this game with you so you can be on top of me and keep pressure on me and understand the relationship between the shoulders and the hips and the, rotation and
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
Look into
Well,
the Vitruvian Grappler.
Vegas qualifier. Last chance.
Y'all better show up. Y'all better bring it. We're pumped.
There's got to be.
I got a golden microphone for this season.
You what?
I got a golden microphone for this season.
What?
I
haven't heard
supposed
this.
to say that out loud, but I just got excited.
It's
It's
a golden microphone.
gold. I'm not playing with y'all.
What have we created, Keelan?
It's on the way.
That's great. That's great.
Hard. Season 8 is going to be the best one yet. These qualifiers, you guys that are showing up, running this game over and over and over to make these qualifiers, man, we appreciate you guys so much. I swear this is what's going to drive it all forward. Your efforts and your intensity and playing the game a lot of times is going to help you in the future to make the game better next time you play it, even if you don't make it this season. So thank you guys that are showing up and playing the game and putting your heart. Dude, I know how hard it is, for sure. And Isaac, also, we both, for his season, we ran that qualifier thing, and he didn't get the wins and stuff like that, and a lot of them. So we can relate to that feeling also. So props to you guys for showing up, no matter what that's been like for you in these qualifiers and putting it down, man. This stuff is great. It's exciting, and we can't do it without everybody else.
Yeah, I have a love-hate relationship with the qualifying season. I love qualifying season though. Like it's when you get to see the glimpse of what's going to be the whole week, and then you get into the week and you see these guys that are showing out in the qualifiers, and then the level just goes up even more when you get there for the week.
Now
You're wait, who's on the roster?
That's the thing, is the qualifiers definitely now are, and not in a bad way. Like, these guys are all really good, but a lot of the invites and things like that are higher level players than them, people that they would, on paper are over them. So it's like, as exciting as that all is like, now you guys are the lower ranked players coming into this thing. You're not who was number one, in this way.
Dude.
So
Dude,
that's
the amount of
that's the
times in
thing.
this documentary footage where I've seen guys have the conversation, and this is so funny to me because I've been in this conversation. I've been having this conversation live where you're looking at the list and you go, "Oh man, who are the Dunkables?" And you kind of see the ones that kind of like scratch the back of their head as they say that, and they're like, "I'm the Dunkable." Oh God.
And listen, sometimes we don't know that though.
No,
Like that's
yeah.
the thing is like the person that has ended up being dunked on a few times, like people are like, "Oh, I didn't know that was gonna happen."
They didn't
And then
either.
the
They thought
dunkable
they
is
were gonna
end up
win.
about winning, and putting down points and stuff too. So
Cool.
it's evolving, man. It's so much fun,
It
and
is.
so yeah, you guys, good luck at the qualifiers this weekend. We're hyped up. Rolling in. What is it? March 23rd.
23rd through the 28th.
Yep. So wait, yeah, 23rd is the draft.
I believe so.
I believe
Yes,
that's
sir.
right. Don't fact
Yes,
check us.
sir.
This is that weekend though. We'll talk about it a lot more on the way up to there. Yeah, I think that's it for me today. Much love, everybody. Isaac.
Peace. Loving everybody tuning in. We'll be back again 10 a.m. ish somewhere.
Good.